Hello, everybody. Shu here, and today I want to go over. I wanted to compare Guild Wars to some of its counterparts, some of the big MMOs, mainly just World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV, and this is why I keep coming back to this game. I absolutely love Guild Wars. I have a couple of accounts actually. I bought it all the way back when it was a hard copy, and I've started fresh accounts for different reasons. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of compare them, and just kind of tell you why Guild Wars has spoiled me so stinking much. And I am overall pretty excited. So let's get into this. I actually wrote some notes, but yeah, let's just take a stroll while we talk. We'll walk around the city here. And but yeah, so the first thing I want to compare is just server management. This is incredibly important, and in my opinion, Guild Wars 2 does this the best. Final Fantasy 14 is definitely runner-up, and they are improving this situation. But overall, I have to give this to Guild Wars, man. So the way Guild Wars does servers, right, is everyone plays on the same server, or not the same server, but like the same mega server. Now there are different worlds, which is this game's version of servers, but everyone plays together. The only thing that the server, like when you pick a server, the only thing that really matters right now is world v world, and even that's getting a change soon. So everyone gets to play together, right? Every zone has someone in it because of this. There is no dead servers. There's like, oh, well, don't play on this server because it's dead. Play on this one. And then everyone congregates to the busy server, and then all the dead servers die off. And just splitting up the player base is never a smart thing, right? Now, Final Fantasy XIV is taking leaps and bounds to fix this issue, but it's still not as seamless. You can visit other servers in your data center, but you have to go up to an eighth right, click a couple of menus, and then you'll load into the other server. It's not seamless, right? If you want to visit another server, you actually have to visit the other server. Now, if you're to compare to this, like I said, to Guild Wars, it's just automatically everyone plays together. There is no switching. There's none of that, right? And then if you load into a zone, it's going to put you on the highest pop or close to the highest pop of players in that specific zone. And when people start to leave and start to go to other zones, and if that zone gets low populated, it'll pop up a menu and it'll say, hey, this is a low pop zone. Do you want to move you to another one? And it's literally just like a quick second loading screen. And it'll take you exactly in the same spot you were at, the exact same location you were at. Quick second, transverses you to another, like the same zone, but it's like a different server. Because there can only be so many people on a single zone, and then it has to put people in different channels, I guess would be a good way of explaining it. Different channels. Here, let's see. Let me go. Oops. Let me put this in performance mode. There we go. I just wanted to make sure the stream was working pretty good. But yeah, so as far as servers go, Guild Wars does it seamlessly. They always keep players together. This is by far the most social game I've ever played. Alrighty, next is the character creation screen. So character creation, in my opinion, Guild Wars and Final Fantasy, they both do it fairly well. With World of Warcraft, I understand it's lore based. I get it. But in that game, certain races can be on certain factions, and even then, when it comes to classes, certain classes can only be with certain races, which can be faction defining. And you know that, for example, if you want to be a warlock, you've got to play on the horde. I don't think, I could be wrong. Put in the comments if I'm wrong, but I don't think like warlock can be on the alliance side, and I don't think a paladin could. Can the paladin go on the horde side? I'm not entirely sure on that one, but I do know that they are race specific. So certain races can only play certain classes. Final Fantasy 14, you know, any race. There's no factions in that game. Any race can play any class. And same thing for Guild Wars. Any race can play any class. And the way the classes start to function is in World of Warcraft, every class, I believe, has 3 specs. Some of them are like DPS and healer. Maybe they'll have 2 healing specs like the priest. The priest had the discipline and the holy priest. They're both healing specs. And then you've had the shadow priest as a DPS. And then paladins has a healing, a tank, and a DPS role as well. And they're different predefined specs, right? So they do give you a little bit of variety there. So I will have to say that edges out Final Fantasy XIV. In my opinion, I love theory crafting. I love build craft, things like that. And yeah, Final Fantasy XIV doesn't have that. You pick a class that is, you have a set role, a set amount of skills. There's absolutely zero customization when it comes to your class. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I know a lot of people really appreciate that, and I know that makes balancing super, super easy. So I'm definitely not making that a negative. I definitely understand it. I'm just kind of pointing that out there that is... Now, when it comes to Guild Wars, this once again wins. You know, it gives me that build craft, right? So there's 9 separate classes. There's 3 heavy, 3 medium armor, and then 3 light armor. But here's the thing. The armor types really don't matter a whole lot, right? So, like, for example, Necromancer has a ton of vitality, can be extremely tanky if built correctly, but it's a light armor, right? So, just because it has a light, heavy, medium, I don't know what they were doing there, but that's, you know, when it comes to heavy armor, there's your warrior, your guardian, and your revenant. Your medium is going to be your ranger, your thief, and your engineer. And then your light armor is your necromancer, elementalist, and mesmer. But just because you have a certain type of armor on doesn't define if you're a tank or not, right? So when you get gear, this guy's not very high level, so it's not going to be a super great example. But it's going to have, like this one has power and precision, so that's going to be damage and crit rate, right? You can get gear that has toughness, which is just base defense, and then vitality, which is health. It doesn't matter what type of armor, whether it's light or heavy, you can have a bunch of toughness and a bunch of vitality if you want to be super, super tanky. So you definitely have like a lot more flexibility when it comes to like what kind of armor you're going to be wearing. So when it comes to just being a tank, DPS, or whatever, it doesn't matter what class you're playing. You can be a glass cannon warrior if you wanted to, right? So you have that added flexibility. Now, when it comes to the weapons you use, this is another bit of variety, right? Just because I'm a ranger doesn't mean I have to use a bow. I can use swords. I can use great swords. I can use long bows, short bows, axes, torches, horns. Like, I have such a variety. And when you get to the elite specs, that starts introducing other things like great hammers and staffs. And then you get to the part where you can actually start unlocking your specializations. Those are the elite specs, right? And then you start going here and you start picking which passives you want with all 3 of these, right? So there is a just because you're playing a class doesn't mean you're playing it this way, right? So for example, warrior on Final Fantasy XIV or tank, warrior on World of Warcraft, you're a tank or a DPS, right? Final Fantasy XIV, you're just a tank. When it comes to Guild Wars, heck, you could even be a support warrior, right? They've got that. They've got the, I think it's a shout warrior, or it could be shouts. I know they've got like flags and stuff you can put down, which buffs your allies. Like you could be a support warrior if you wanted to, right? So there is just a ton of variety when it comes to Guild Wars. And then some people say it's too complex. If it is complex, just look up a build, right? Look up a meta build, and then just follow that. So, Guild Wars once again it just takes the cake when it comes to making your own character yourself, and that's what's important to me when I want to be my own identity. I don't want to be, just another bard, right? Just another warrior running around. I like to have something that makes me a little bit different, and this game does that. Alrighty. So now we're going to get into, in my opinion, the most important part of an MMORPG, and that is the world. That is the open world. That is so important when it comes to games. And World of Warcraft is, out of these three, in fact, is one of the few MMOs that has a true open world where there's no loading screens in between zones, right? 14 and Guild Wars has that. And that's not, I'm not going to say it's necessarily a negative, but I'm going to say that if it didn't have that, it would be a lot better, right? I would feel a lot more immersive being able just to run around the entire world without having to have loading zones. And World of Warcraft has that. But they don't take advantage of it, and I don't understand it. Once you level through a zone, that's it. You're done. Once an expansion is over, any zones there, any part of that open world is completely forgotten, right? And once you're done leveling up your character and getting the gear you need, the content consists of 90% of raids, dungeons, and PvP, right? Those are instance content. World of Warcraft focuses on its instance content when it has this massive, beautiful world to take advantage of. That's truly open world, right? 14 has some reasons to go back to older zones. Maybe you're trying to get certain transmogs or mounts. Like, there is definitely reasons to go back in 14. And I guess you could say the same thing for WoW, but hardly anyone does. Like, through all the leveling zones, they're pretty much dead. I'm not going to say 14 is a whole lot better at this. They do reuse old zones, though, with expansions. So just because you are level 10, you're running through a newbie zone, there may be a reason for a veteran player to go through there for some sort of quest. So it definitely handles this a little bit better than WoW, in my opinion. But Guild Wars, on the other hand, does this amazing. For one, it scales everyone together. Just because you're level 80 with ascended gear, you go to a lower level zone, and it's going to downscale you. Now, a lot of people don't like that, and I understand. You've worked hard for this gear. You want to feel powerful. You want to squash all the low level enemies that was kicking you butt before, and I get that. But what this scaling does is this allows friends to play together without the higher level just outright one-shotting it. Right? There's a boss fight. It's going to take both of them, the level 80 and level 8. And that makes it a lot more enjoyable for everyone, in my opinion, because one-shotting stuff may be fun at the beginning, but eventually it gets old, right? And then your friend is not going to really be able to play because you're one-shotting everything. So, and honestly, I think this is the better option out of the two. It's a double-edged sword for sure. But when it comes to added flexibility and trying to get your friends to come play, I believe that is something that I think other games should take note on. On 14 or WoW, when you're leveling with a friend, they're just gonna be one-shotting everything. Doesn't matter how strong like a little mini boss, one shot. They're level 60 or they're level 80 or 90 or whatever, right? With maxed out gear, substantially higher stats than you have, so they're just going to crush everything. And yeah, I don't think that's going to be much fun for the newer player trying to get into it. So I believe the best chance for your friend to really get into the game is for you to be at a somewhat level playing field. Now, don't get me wrong, you're not going to be 100% at a level playing field, right? You still have your build, your passives, and your specs. You still have... I know I'm cheating on all these. You still have your specs and things, so you're still going to be more powerful, but when it comes just to overall stats, those are going to be lowered. But yeah, and then in the open world, there's events everywhere. Everywhere, man. Like, you could be running through a zone, and you'll see someone needing defended, right? You'll see a pirate boat that needs to be sieged, right? And you'll see just people naturally grouping up together and taking on those challenges. And you'll see these meta events, these world bosses. You'll see so many things, so many reasons to go back to these older zones. And the way they do the servers and the zone merging and everything, it 100% guarantees you are going to see people in that zone, 100%. And the fact this is a free-to-play game, at least the base game is, you are once again going to see a steady flow of new players coming in. So overall, this game feels, even though this game has a smaller population, it feels much, much, much bigger than games like World of Warcraft, especially when it comes to early game content, because everyone in WoW is doing instance-based content, you know, where there's like 5 or 8 or 24 or however many people, and then 14 isn't quite as bad, but once again, a lot of its focus is on instance content. Now, Guild Wars, they have their instance content too, right? There's their strike missions, which are like trials on 14. There's your raids, there's your dungeons, there's your fractals, which are just more dungeons. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of those instance content if you want to jump in a dungeon with your friends and clear it out. It's there. But they put so much focus, so much effort on these open worlds, or not open worlds, but like the outer world, that there's so many people doing it, and it makes the game feel like a true MMORPG and not just a skin of one, you know. So I think open world, in my opinion, is one of the most important parts. And Guild Wars 2 hits it on the head, right? You truly feel like you are in a world full of other players having a good time. Now, when it comes to leveling, things like questing and whatnot, they're all relatively the same, right? WoW's the worst, in my opinion, on this. You go to a questing hub where there's like a bunch of people with quests, and you pick them up, and you're either killing things, gathering things, clicking on things. That's it, right? And when it comes to WoW, WoW does early game combat a little bit better. A little bit, I'm going to stress the word a little bit better. But 14 is really, really rough at the beginning due to its, 2.5 second cooldown. Let's go this way. But honestly, all the games have similar questing styles. But with Guild Wars, they're the little hearts on the map, right? Let's go to Queensdale here. They're little hearts on the map. And you don't have to talk to anyone. You don't have to pick up the quest, which therefore you don't have to turn in the quest. So there's no back and forth. Yeah, I know there's been plenty of MMOs that you all played that, you pick up a quest and then you gotta walk 10 miles to do X, Y, or Z, and then you have to walk all the way back. That's not here, right? You go to a quest, boom, look at that. That's the quest. That's the quest giver. It tells you up here, right? It tells you what it needs done. And you do this. And once you do this, that's it. You leave. You don't talk to anyone. Now, he's there if you want to talk to him, if you want to know the backstory and why that they want you to do this. But no one does that. And they realize that. They realize people just skip through the questing, right? So they don't make you read it. They're like, just let them do it and run. Let them do it, get over with. And to me, I'm totally okay with that, because I could care less if people skip through the questing dialogue anyways, right? So, 14, honestly, it does very, very similar things. Its questing isn't much better, but at least it has a really, really, really good story. I want to say post-ARR. Honestly, ARR wasn't that good of a story in my opinion, but it sets the grounding blocks up for a really, really, really good story. The issue is, if you're like me, you don't care about the story, no matter how good it is. I played all through AR. The ending was amazing of AR, I'll have to admit. And then I got to Heaven's Word, and I honestly lost interest on that. And because it's so story focused, right? And that's not that's not who I am. I'm not a story focused individual. I like collecting transmogs and pets and mounts, and I like doing in-game content. I'm your typical standard MMO player, right? So a game that focuses so much on the story element isn't going to appeal to me that much. And it's definitely not a bad thing. As you can see, that 14 has been incredibly successful, and it is an incredible game, right? The in-game content looks like an absolute blast, right? I would love to play 14 and do its raids, do its trials, do all that stuff. But the issue I run into is the fact that there's so many expansions, and you have to play through every single one of them. I was looking online about how long it takes just to get to Endwalker, and some people are saying around 500 hours, right? Like, if you want to experience the story and get into everything, you're looking at 400 to 500 hours. That's just to get to Endwalker, right? That's to do all the expansions and then all their post quests, like in between expansions. Like, that's insane, right? That's a lot of content to go through. And for a new player, I believe it could be very overwhelming, especially if you're someone who just say doesn't have a whole lot of time to play, right? I may only have like an hour or two a day. You know, like let's say I have 2 hours a day, right? Well, and it takes about 500 hours to get through the game, according to sources I've looked at. That's 250 days just to get to Endwalker. Probably another 50 days. Like, we're looking at a full year's worth of playing just to be able to get to the part that I truly enjoy. And that's a no-no. Takes anywhere between 6 to 12 months to get to the content that I actually enjoy. Now, yes, there are trials, there are dungeons, there are things that you can do on the way. But if you just want to get to in-game, right, and join your friends and do all that other stuff, there's so much game to get through. Guild Wars, on the other hand, once you hit 80, you are doing all the in-game. You hit 80 and you have at least exotics, preferably Ascended. Ascended isn't much better than exotics, but better gear is better gear. So definitely want to go for the Ascendeds, but at least if you have exotics on, anytime they have an expansion, you're doing it, man. You're doing it. In fact, when you buy the game, they give you 1, possibly even 2 level boosts. Now, I would recommend leveling your first character just to kind of get used to the game, but boost your character up, right? And there's little things in the game called Tomes of Knowledge you can get that gives a character a free level. You save up 80 of those things, give it to an alt, boom, another level 80 character. Throw on some exotics, you're doing in-game content, right? You're doing the stuff. I'm doing the stuff that I enjoy, right? And it doesn't really take that long. And leveling doesn't take that long, honestly. I would say if you played a couple hours a day, you could probably take you about a week to get to level 80. I would say it would be a good estimate, level 80. And I mean, honestly, that's not that bad compared to 6 to 12 months. So, yeah, honestly, Guild Wars, when it comes to someone who has less time on their hand, who doesn't even care about story all that much. Now, don't get me wrong, this game's got a good story, right? This game does have a good story. I've followed through with it. They give you it in bite-size a format, which I really appreciate because I'm kind of ADHD like that. So they give me a little bit of story, and then I could just stop doing that and do a different grind, or do this or do that, or do some fractals, whatever. And I can come back and do the story, right? So, Guild Wars, once again, it's literally the MMO for someone like me. So, progression, I kind of went over that a little bit. With WoW and Final Fantasy XIV, they're vertical gear progression. But WoW likes to introduce a lot of systems that are temporary. Sure, we'll kill these people. They like to put in a lot of temporary temporary gear, and they time gate it, which means that you're going to be able to logging on every day or every week to achieve certain gear skills. Now, 14 does this a little bit better. Yes, there is a gear treadmill, but you can get it fairly easily, and they don't like time gate it or anything, so you could just kind of go in there, spend a couple days, get gear, and then that's it. You're good. You can do whatever content you want at that point. So 14 does it a lot more friendly when it comes to time, which I appreciate. Dang. And then, when it comes to Guild Wars, like I've said before, once you hit level 80, you're good to go. Everything after that is just side grades, right? It's just enhances your account in other ways, whether it's ways to travel around certain maps, like gliders and mounts, certain gear set combinations, maybe different runes. Like there are definitely other things to grind for, other than just having a larger number at the end of your attacks. That's how I look at it, and I definitely appreciate that. They expand the way to play, not just drag it out. And I really do appreciate that. This latest one, they've added some more mounts, like some like battle mounts is what I would say they would be. But they've also added like fishing and boats and stuff like that. So once again, they're expanding the way to play, and I think a lot of developers have something they can learn from that. Boom, we're crushing. As you can see, I'm level 24, but it downscales me to level 8 because I'm in a kind of a newbie zone. So, now when it comes to, I guess we can go over combat real quick. Once again, 14. Early game combat is a little rough, right? 2.5-second global cooldown. Now, once you hit end game, there's going to be a lot of skills you get that's off the global cooldown. So you weave those abilities together, and overall, I think it makes a pretty good experience when it comes to combat.
World of Warcraft is your typical 1 second global cooldown. It's a little bit more active at the beginning, but I think it fleshes out to be kind of similar to 14 toward the end game. Has a better early game, and then 14 catches up eventually. They're all tap targeting. Now, when it comes to Guild Wars, it's a tap target system, but it's an action hybrid, right? If your sword doesn't make contact with the enemy, it's going to miss, right? You also don't have to have a target to utilize your abilities. I never finished this one. And that's another really, really important thing. See, like, boom, I made contact, smack, smack, smack. There's dodging, right? You can even set an action camera mode if you prefer like a third-person shoot action RPG like this. Boom. Right, this is great, man. Like, combat is so much more slick. And when it comes to switching weapons out and stuff like that, you could really add some diversity to your combat. So, combat, Guild Wars wins once again. Now, when it comes to just some extra things you can do, WoW doesn't really have a whole lot of extra things, right? It's just your standard, typical MMO. Raids, dungeons, PvP. I could be wrong. There could be some other things, but, transmog, mount collection, pet collection. Like, there are things to do, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to extra things, right? Things that are kind of out of the ordinary, like 14 has really, really good player housing, though it's very poorly implemented because getting a house is dumb. I'm not even going to get into that. If you want to get into that, I'm sure there's videos on it. It's just dumb. Like, I think it's completely idiotic the way they did housing. Now, Guild Wars doesn't necessarily have player housing. I believe they have like guild kind of housing that you can do, but specific player housing, I don't think it has. Die. Like how the guard's just sitting there watching us fight. But yeah, the 14 has the casino, the gold saucer thing, which is really, really cool. Let's help with this. There we go. But yeah, Guild Wars, on the other hand, because it has the sideways progression, it's not like it has to expand itself, right? Like, it has to have more and more ways. Every expansion, there's more ways to play the game. And yes, this game has all the typical tropes of an MMORPG, dungeons and raids and stuff. But it has a lot else going for it, right? The way they do the mount system is the best, in my opinion. Mounts actually feel like they have weight to them. They all have their own purpose. So these mounts are fantastic. They added boats in the game. The underwater combat's really cool. The events that you can do. It has its own set of transmog that you can take part in. There's a lot you can do in the game when it comes to just having other things to do. There's always something that you can be working toward, and it's not necessarily has to be combat related. And I genuinely think that is definitely important to have some variety in the gameplay, because sometimes doing the same thing over and over again does get a little. See how I'm aiming at each individual thing, and that's not perfect. It's not true action combat, right? Like, I can kind of shoot over their head and still see them. I wasn't necessarily aiming at them, but regardless, you have to be aiming at least close to them. So. But yeah, I think this video's gone on long enough, just kind of explaining why Guild Wars has always been a home to me. It feels like a proper MMO, and there are just things about those other games that it just keeps me from getting into. With 14, it's mainly just how long the game is to get to the content that I want to enjoy. And World of Warcraft is honestly a very fast leveling game. You can get to A-game really, really easy. Yeah. But there's so many other problems I have with the game. Like, just doing the leveling in general is really, really boring. And after you get done with leveling, the world feels dead.
and there's only a select few things to do, raids, dungeons, and things, which is what I'm into for sure. But I like having variety. Variety's the spice of life, as they say. But yeah, if you like this video, give it a like. If you disagree with me, if I got some things wrong, for sure put it in the comments below. Just please be respectful. I don't really tolerate toxicity, which is another reason why I truly appreciate Guild Wars and even Final Fantasy XIV for having some of the best communities out there. WoW, I'm sure, has its good parts as well, but overall, I hear a lot of toxicity about that community, which is unfortunate. So, but yeah, I hope to see you guys in the next one.